afternoon, Mr. Collins.
Good afternoon.
Welcome back, and thank you for coming back.
Mhm.
I have a few follow-up questions for you regarding the incident that you responded to on January 28, 2015 at 2905 Springdale Road.
Okay.
Do you recall testifying about that yesterday?
Yes.
All right. And I'm going to show you what has been labeled as and admitted as states 1 Charlie, Charlie, Charlie. And it'll be put on the screen, but it will also be on that piece of paper in front of you. Is that the location at 2905 Springdale Road?
Yes, that's
Southwest.
that's the
you
parking
responded
lot. Yes,
to? Okay. And did you testify already that whether or not that was in Fulton County?
I did.
Okay. On the date that you responded, do you recall reporting or testifying about one of the units that had been shot up, that the occupant of the unit was not inside at the time that police arrived?
Yes, I remember that one.
Do you recall which unit that was?
I'm pretty sure it's P3 without looking at my report.
All right. May I show you your report to refresh your recollection?
Sure.
All right. And Your Honor, this report I think had been previously labeled just for identification purposes as 666 Charlie, Charlie, Charlie. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's the wrong. I'm going to show him his report to refresh his memory. And for defense purposes, it will be page 8 of 8.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yep. Apartment P3 was the unoccupied apartment.
All right. And when you say unoccupied, I'm going to take this back, okay? When you say unoccupied, do you mean it that it was not the resident was not there at the time that you all arrived, or it was an empty apartment that no one lived in?
Oh, no one was there at the time because the back door was open.
Okay. Now, do you recall at some point and the occupant of the home coming back?
Yes.
All right. Do you recall what her name was?
No, not off the top of my head.
If I show you your report, let me ask you this. Did you put that information in your report?
Yes, it's in my report.
And did you talk with her?
Yes, that's in my report.
All right. If I show you your report, will it refresh your recollection about what her name is?
Sure.
All right. I'm going to show it to you. Page 8 of 8.
Okay.
And I'll just, for brevity's purposes, point you to that last.
Yeah. I've got the last name as Smith in here.
Now, on your report, do you, in the first part, I'll say, do you list the victims' names as you learn them to be?
Yes.
All right. Do you recall the occupant of apartment P2?
Do I recall their name? I believe that was
his name, the occupant of P2.
I remember the last name from yesterday when I testified.
Okay, and was that Mac?
Yes.
Gilberti Mac?
Yes.
All right. And, excuse me. On the report, page 3 of 8, if I show you your report again, do you list not only the name, but phone number and address of the victims that you've identified?
Sure, if I can see it, I can.
I will show you page 3 of 8.
Okay.
Would you look at what you've written for unit P3 and tell me if it refreshes your memory?
Yep.
All right. What was the full name of the person who lived in unit P3?
It's, I'm just going to spell it. First name is Antria. Last name is Smith.
All right. And without saying what it was, did you also have a phone number for Ms. Smith?
Yes.
And did you get that phone number from Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Was it still nighttime when she arrived at her apartment?
Yes.
Were there still units besides yourself on scene?
Yes.
Were there still crime scene technicians processing the scene?
Most likely without an accurate count, I would say probably.
All right. I'm going to now show you what has been marked as State's Exhibit 38. 65, Charlie, Charlie, Charlie. And I'm not going to publish all of these. I'm just going to ask you whether 65 Charlie, Charlie, Charlie through 108 Charlie, Charlie, Charlie pertain to the apartment that belonged to Miss Smith that you dealt with.
Okay.
Could you publish the first one?
I don't understand what you're saying.
If we could put up State's Exhibit 66, Charlie, Charlie, Charlie.
Yes, those do pertain to that. That's what you were asking, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You would just
Yeah.
into the microphone.
Those do pertain to apartment P3.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to put up 66, Charlie, 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 and that on the screen behind you
Okay.
or in front of you. Is that the P3 that we're talking about that Ms. Smith lived in?
Yes.
All right. And do you have any independent recollection of how long you spoke with Ms. Smith while she was on scene?
No.
Do you recall
Your Honor,
and if you do, or
Yes.
may we approach?
Yes.
all right. And Mr. Collins, in your report, did you reflect other officers or other unit numbers that were with you on scene?
Did I write them in there? Yes.
Yes. And do you recall, as you sit here today, who they were without refreshing your memory?
Yes.
Who were they?
Would have been Kenneth Robinson responded, and my lieutenant, one of the sergeants. I want to say it was Lieutenant Bruce, probably Sergeant Dawson.
And do you recall who would have been unit or 4380 and 6161?
4380 would most likely be a support person, like a crime scene tech, and the 6 number would be a detective.
Would looking at your report aid you in remembering who it was?
Yeah,
All right.
because I might have that backwards.
I'm going to give you the whole report, and you look wherever you need to in your report.
Okay, so 4380 and 6161 are listed in here. Most likely as investigators
Okay.
that would have shown up. There's a 7 number that's a crime scene tech.
Okay. Would you tell the jury what your responsibility as it related to those investigators that would have shown up were? And you can look through any part of your report to refresh your memory if you need to.
My responsibility on scene to them is to get there and arrive to a scene and secure it, and then notify the proper authority or person to investigate the scene.
And as you're on scene, when you said, did I hear you earlier testify or did you not, that you spoke with Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Okay. Now, were you present when she spoke with anyone else on scene that you could recall?
I mean, not that I can recall.
All right. If I give you your report, might it refresh your memory?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I read it.
And were you present when she spoke to these people? Or
I would have still been on scene, but I don't know if I was sitting in on their conversation.
okay,
But I did. Yeah.
but you did what? You can say whatever it is.
I mean, I wrote down in my report that she had made
Don't-
statements.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you recall what statements she made to you, or what statements you heard her make?
I do after I've just seen my report.
Okay. And so that I can be precise and we cannot be imprecise,
Yep.
did she tell you who was either staying
Your
at her?
Honor, I'm going to object on foundation. It's not been properly laid at this point.
Your Honor, the witness just stated that he recalled after reading the report what he heard or what.
The witness recalled in response to Madam Prosecutor's question that he was present for a conversation between the witness and the other two, and he was there on the scene. It's not been clear who the statements were made to.
He just said he remembered what he recalled hearing, so overruled.
Do you recall hearing Ms. Smith talk about a friend of hers who had been at her place?
Yes.
And what was that friend's name?
I believe she gave a nickname.
What nickname was it? If you need to look at it again,
Yes. So I don't misspeak.
okay? And just the name.
I wrote in here Lil Kell.
And how did you spell Kell?
Kel.
All right. And without going into anything else beyond, let me be very specific here. What refreshes your memory, if it does, after Lil Kell, did she say what he was doing at her place?
She stated that he was like hiding out
Okay.
at her place.
Hiding out at her place?
Yes.
All right. Now, did Ms. Smith also tell you, did she also mention her boyfriend's brother?
Yes.
Would you tell the jury only what name of the boyfriend's brother that she gave?
She gave the name Peanut.
Okay. Was Miss Smith's unit the one that had the television shot and that sustained, would you say it sustained the least, the most, or the same amount of damage as the other units?
That one looked like it received more damage than the other units.
I'm sorry, could you say it a little bit
More. That one had more damage than the other units.
Okay. And do you recall whether Miss Smith gave you any information about requests she had made of her neighbor, Mr. Mack? And if you don't, I'll let you read it. And if it still doesn't refresh your memory, that's fine.
Okay.
Start up here, and if it doesn't, that's fine. And starting, counselors, I'd ask him to start at the second paragraph on page 8 of 8. Read to yourself and then look up after you've had a chance to read it.
Okay. Yeah, I wrote here in the report.
Don't
Okay.
say what you wrote in the report.
Yeah.
My question is, do you recall after reading your report whether Ms. Smith relayed to you or within hearing of you anything about requests she made of Mr. Mack?
I don't remember
Okay,
that.
all right. Now, did you list in your report the names associated with those numbers that you mentioned, those unit numbers?
Yes.
And would you read or find that area in your report where you list the names associated with those unit numbers? Just, you can turn on any page that you
Sure.
need to.
Well, they're all written like in order of the
Okay.
apartments we went to in the narrative.
All right. And so in the last paragraph, where there is unit number 4380 and 6161, are you able to say which names are associated with 4380 and 6161? Did you write that in your report? Anywhere? And you can look on other pages.
Yep. I did write it down.
So which names were associated with which name was associated with 4380?
That's Bacon. It's an investigator.
All right. And what kind of investigator is Bacon?
He would have been a general investigator.
And what does the general investigator do in relation to what you do?
They respond to any major incident that happens overnight when all the rest of the units are not in. They're kind of like a catch-all detective.
And 6161, who is that one?
That last name is Curry.
Okay. And is that investigator, officer?
That is a gangs unit.
Okay.
So
Now, how did the gangs unit get involved? Do you know? Without saying anything in particular? Just yes. If you don't, that's fine.
it's typical to notify them in a situation like this.
Okay. Without talking about what anyone said, when you say in a situation like this, are you able to explain what you mean?
We had responded to several of these in the
Okay.
same area,
In the same area?
in the same part of town. Yeah.
Okay. And when you say part of town, could you be any more specific?
In the southern part of Zone 3.
Okay. And in your report, do you indicate that Ms. Smith spoke with both Investigator Bacon and Investigator Curry?
I do. I
All
indicate that at the end.
Now, in your report, do you say specifically that she spoke with you?
The way that I wrote it, it would indicate that she spoke with me.
Okay.
And it would be reasonable to say that she would have had to speak to me to get to another investigator.
Say that for me one more time.
It would be like normal procedure. If somebody's arriving on scene, they don't just immediately speak to a detective. They would talk to a patrol officer first who's manning the crime scene tape or
Okay.
doing some other kind of task.
And is it customary for you, when you're on scene, for you to either point victims or witnesses to the investigators, or even relay to them information that that victim or witness has shared with you?
Yes, that's
Okay.
normal.
All right. Just 1 second. Thank you. That's all that I have for now.
All right, then. Defense questions for this witness?
Yeah.
Mr. Collins, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
My name is Keith Adams. I represent Mr. Williams, who's sitting over here.
Okay.
And I've got a couple questions for you about what you just testified to, okay?
Sure.
All right. If I heard you correctly, you responded to this location on Springdale Road back in 2015, true?
I mean, without referencing my report, that sounds correct.
Right.
Could be.
Is that your report right there that you've been looking at?
Believe so.
Yeah, Judge?
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and leave this with you, so if you need to reference it.
Cool.
Please feel free to do so, okay?
Sure.
All right. 2015, I think I heard you testify yesterday when you were here previously that was a long time.
Objection as to whether Miss- a belief about what Mr. Adams.
All right, I think it's just trying to call the witness's attention back, so I'll permit that, and if that's not correct, then please correct that in your answer.
Did you testify previously, when you were here previously, that was about 9 years ago? That was a long time ago.
Yes.
It is fair to say that you don't have a clear, independent recollection of everything that happened in that investigation from 9 years ago.
Sure. Almost no one would.
Right. And because it was a long time ago and you need to refresh your recollection by looking at your report, true?
Okay. Yes.
Which is what you've been doing.
Yes.
Okay. You testified a little while ago about going to apartment P3 or unit P3. Remember that?
Okay. Yes.
And your testimony was that when you went to apartment P3, it was unoccupied. There was no one there.
Correct.
That is not the first place that you went to. You'd gone to other units first before you got to P3, correct?
That's the order I have it written down. I mean, sure.
Okay. Does that sound about right?
I mean, the way I kept it organized in my report, I just went 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you were to put a GPS tracker on me, I may have moved differently. I don't know.
You just don't really know for sure.
We're talking about something that happened 9 years ago at 1 a.m.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, but we're relying upon your best memory, your best recollection from 9 years ago. True?
Yeah. That's
And just to be clear, I heard you mention, or you were referenced to, I guess, badge numbers, 4380 and 6161. Remember that?
yeah. Those are radio numbers, not a badge number.
Okay, but those radio numbers are assigned to specific investigators.
Yes, but they're probably assigned to somebody else now.
Right.
It just changes.
Back then, it was Bacon and Curry, correct?
Correct.
And at some point, they arrived on the scene.
Correct.
Would they have arrived as a result of you calling for them?
Probably notifying the GI. So typically you would radio to notify a general investigator, and you would try and raise like either the general investigator would raise a gangs unit, or sometimes the lieutenant would request it. She might have done it as well.
Okay, you just don't know for sure. Could have been you, could have been someone else.
Sure, but it was done on scene. Yeah.
And although P3 was unoccupied when you got there, at some point, this woman by the name of Miss Smith showed up, correct?
Correct.
Now, who got there first? Was it Miss Smith, or was it Curry and or Bacon?
I mean, I'm not sure. From the way it's written, it sounds like the investigators were on scene before she arrived.
Okay. And so if the investigators, Curry and Bacon, are on scene before she arrives,
Okay.
right, they had conversations with her, right?
Objection, Your Honor, as
No.
to vagueness about they had conversations with her if she was on scene.
Overruled.
Okay.
Isn't that true? Isn't that what you put in your report? That she spoke, Ms. Smith spoke to 4380 and 6161.
Yeah, I wrote that she spoke to them in the
Right.
report.
And so do you have an independent recollection of you actually taking a statement from her before she spoke to those other two officers?
I remember speaking to a woman there. I remember her making statements and what this was about. And then I remember alerting the detectives and saying, you should probably speak to this lady who just showed up on scene. I do remember that.
So even though they came there before she got there, according to what you just testified,
Mhm.
You spoke to her first, and then she spoke to them?
Your Honor, objection, just ask and just answer.
Asked and answered, sustained.
Is it fair to say that you never interacted with anyone that night named Kell?
Is it fair to say I never interacted with somebody named Kell?
Yeah.
Yes, from the way it's written, I did not.
You didn't see anyone named Kell, right?
I mean, no.
If you had, you would have put that in your report.
I would have put what I did put in there, which was that there was somebody seen like running to a vehicle in surveillance footage. But I mean,
You didn't speak to anyone named
I didn't
Kell that
speak
night.
to anybody named Kell. That's correct.
All right. Let me ask you something. Officer Collins, who did you end up arresting anyone for shooting at any of these units that night?
No.
Is it fair to say that you were not in charge of any continued investigation after your initial appearance there at the scene?
Correct.
All right. You don't have any information about who may have been involved, who may have done this at all that you could share with this jury, do you?
Past what happened on scene? No.
Okay. All right. Ms. Collins, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Okay, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you for your time. You're released, excused.
Released.
Yes.
Call your next witness.